I've got my tea. I think I'm in focus. Let's go. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice there's two mics in the shot. That's because this isn't the first time I tried to record this. It's not even the second time, and both times this boy was too loud. I've got hammering over there, road out there. Probably heard that. So I needed something that was a bit more selective about what sounds were going to be picked up. Okay, we're going to have a look at Book of Travels and character creation. Book of Travels is an extremely cool game. I'm a really big fan of it, and I wanted to help people get into it if they were kind of on the edge. If you haven't heard of the game, take a look at the Steam page. You should get a sense pretty quickly if it's your kind of thing. It's a MMO that's not an MMO, which has combat but not really. It's a lot of walking around and a lot of kind of like ambience. People have described it as a kind of a Zen game, and it kind of is. Regardless, it's quite a cryptic game. There are a lot of concepts thrown at you at the beginning that aren't explained to any kind of degree that we used to be familiar with. My job here is not necessarily to explain them completely, but to reassure you that coming to this from like a vague standpoint is actually quite a good idea. With that in mind, let's have a look. Okay, the first thing you need to know about character creation in this game is that there's an achievement for spending like an exorbitant amount of time in it, like 2 hours. The second thing that you need to know about character creation in Book of Travels is that you don't have to spend anywhere near as much of that time. You can go in and out in a couple of minutes, just like you normally would. It's completely up to you. First, you're going to come to form. This is by far your most important choice. It's how you look. And currently there are 12 forms. Eventually I think there are 20. I don't know if they're all going to be free. I know that one planned is at least DLC, which is kind of annoying at this stage, but take a look at them, find one that appeals to you. It's going to change a couple of things. One, obviously, the main image. Two, these things down here on the bottom right. These look like emoticons, and they kind of are, but they're the only way that you can communicate in this game is with signs, not with text, just a selection of symbols. A lot of these symbols are generic, but some of them are tied to the character that you chose. They're all the same, they're all doing the same things, they just look different. So, given that you're going to be looking at yourself the whole time in this game, because it's a third-person game, and given that the way you express yourself is going to be tied to this form, it's extremely important that you like the form that you choose. So I think that's the most important thing here. It's going to restrict 3 different things down the line in terms of choices. The most important, as I flick through, lost my mouse, as I flick through, you'll see that the wind direction changes. That's the most important. The talents here, kind of important, not really, I'll get to that. And there's also traits which come up later, which I'll talk about at the time. But don't worry about that for now. If you want to experiment with it, you can always choose different forms, bounce back and forward and spend those 2 hours and get that achievement. If you're not like that and you just want to get through it, here's what you need to know. Wind is the most important because every skill every skill, tea, magic thing, there are a load of them in the game that you pick up will have a corresponding wind direction. In order to use those skills, you need to kind of equip them. And you equip them with knowledge points, which you gain every level. So you have 1 knowledge point at level 1, so you can hold on to 1 skill that costs 1. And you have 7 at level 7, so you can start to kind of equip a variety of skills. If your character is the same direction of wind as the skill that you're equipping, it costs 1 less knowledge point to equip. And this can be really useful. For instance, skills that normally cost 1 that you would want to have all the time, like proficiencies in armor or walking a bit faster, now cost 0, and you can keep them on at no tax to yourself. You're not going to be like swapping them out. The other thing is you can swap out these skills all the time. It takes a little bit of time, but you're not restricted by any of these choices. It's just basically like the ease of, the ease of doing particular things, but you can do everything. What you might be tempted by is looking up all the skills and try on the internet and trying to work backwards and be like, okay, I like the look of these skills, so I'm going to be this direction of wind. I think this is a waste of time. One, because they're going to add a load more skills in the future, so it's just going to get more complicated. Two, there's already so many skills, like who's going to read all of them? And three, you're going to have no idea which ones are useful when you go in. And all of them are a kind of mix of useful and just kind of flavor and aesthetic. Not necessarily useless in the context of a game like this, because it's kind of about vibes, but not necessarily practical. So they give you these really brief descriptions about what each direction means. Powerful, just and true. Warm, creative, diffuse, and mystical. It's not much to go off, but try and take that seriously and just roll with it. Okay, so we're going to pick the Veiled. I like it. Cool character. And let's pick next. Background is all flavor. If you want to spend your 2 hours, this is where you can spend it. If you want to spend a few minutes in character creation, this is where you rush through. Age, gender, upbringing, background, whenever you want. Other players are going to be able to read this if they've got a particular skill. So in a way, it's the only way to like type to other people indirectly. You can like, I don't know if you could like leave messages for people here that they could find if they were trying to like see what the background of your character was. The other thing to keep in mind is obviously that if you're on this video, you're not used to this game and you have no idea what the world is like. So like, how are you going to write a background for a character in a world that you're not familiar with? I don't know. So I wouldn't advise spending more time in this section than you strictly feel comfortable with. And I'm comfortable with this, so let's keep going. All right, traits. Traits are limited by the form. They're kind of buffs and debuffs. You get to pick 2 good traits and 1 negative traits. At the moment, not all of them are implemented in the game, so a cynical person could say pick one that is a negative trait that isn't implemented. It will be implemented eventually, so if you're going to stick around, this is kind of, I don't know, not the best idea. I'm not going to read all of them here because there's a lot more than you see. However, my advice will be that anything that speeds you up is good, anything that slows you down is terrible. Anything that helps with trading is good, and anything that hurts trading is bad. That's like a good place to start. Otherwise, just work off flavor. It's a role-playing game. You should be trying to embody your character, and I think they made the right decision in kind of throwing you in without telling you like how pragmatically it's going to help you. So you actually come to this in the mindset of like building a character rather than building something that is going to like survive best in a system, which is what we usually do in like kind of stat-based RPGs. So I'm going to pick Charmful for slightly better trading, which is an incredibly good idea. Okay. I don't actually know what that would do, but probably going to be important when it actually is implemented. Careful is also a good one. Not all of the enemies are in the game yet, but I think when they are, it's going to be a lot more deadly. So it's good to know when stuff is coming. At the beginning, you're not going to be able to fight anything off. You're going to get slaughtered. So running away is good. Let's go Fear of Death. You get 3 lives basically, and you can so far replenish them very easily. So I'm not expecting to be on a last life very much. Okay, additional, same as before, however much you want. Okay, skills and talents. Talents you remember from your form. It had 2 different talents on it. These are your choices for increasing by 1 point. When you level up in this game, you don't gain these points. This is it for like passive increases. The way that you gain higher talents is by mostly equipment, but also buffs and some skills. They're all useful, and they're all useful in kind of predictable ways, in that sociality is good if you want to get information out of people. Sometimes that's very useful. They'll tell you about hidden areas and places where you can find cool stuff. And I think it's going to become more useful as they add like cities to this game. Physicality has nothing to do with combat. It's to do with strength, normal like what we'd call strength checks usually. In this, that's mostly pulling apart weeds so you can get better better like reagents. So it's kind of cool. Spirituality is probably my favorite because you can pray at shrines and get random buffs, and some of them are really funny. Mechanics might be the most useful at the moment for like getting like thank you knots, which are currently the best thing in the game. If you want like endgame equipment, you need them. So I'm going to pick mechanics, but again, I think the way that you should be coming at this, and I know I stress this a lot, but don't try and game this. Like, just try and come up with someone that you're into, you know, someone you actually want to spend time playing. You get to choose one of 3 starting skills. These are related to the direction of wind your character is. All of these will be available in the game itself. They're not all kind of, some of them are found very easily, some of them are much more difficult to find. But you won't know that. So just pick one that seems useful. Align is kind of cool. You can see spirits and talk to them. The other 2, if you're really antisocial, Conceal Identity, Glinted Lamp, kind of useless. It's like, I mean, you just put it down and you have light, but you can also hold torches. So. Okay, appearance, more flavor. For every color eye, there is a different personality apparently, so just find one you like. Yeah, that can be serene and preserving. Voice, have a listen. Your character will make like little grunts and highs and stuff like that, so this is what that's going to sound like. Additional, same as before. Okay, final kind of practical choice is equipment. It looks a bit like, you know, like Baldur's Gate and stuff used to look when you rolled a character, and when you clicked the dice, you were clicking not only like where your stats were, but like how big the number was that you could assign to stats. So people would spend like hours and hours clicking to try and get like the perfect character, and you could spend like years doing it and never get the, because it was so unlikely that you would get the whatever. Anyway, that's not how this works. This is just assigning you some usually useless equipment, and I wouldn't spend too long on here. Things to keep an eye out for, mostly backpacks, because they have immediate uses. When you scroll down, if you right click on something, you'll see a few things. Burden is bad. Burden slows you down when you're trying to attack things, but it's not the end of the world. Pockets are separate hidden inventory slots. When you get robbed or taxed or something like this, they'll do that based on the value of things in your normal bag. Anything in the pocket is hidden. So if you put loads of expensive stuff in there, then, you know, if you're, say, mugged, then you won't be so much worse off. Bag size is 6 is a lot of pockets, by the way. Bag size is very cool. 1 extra bag size means 16 more places to store things. So it tends to come with quite a heavy like burden tax if you're at like a low level equipment. But really, like, don't take it too seriously. Yeah, it's a light. More pockets, speed is good. I'm not going to spend too long on here because you shouldn't either. Anything that you find in this starting equipment, roll, and I've like rolled a lot just to check, you're going to be looking to replace immediately. So don't think that there's any kind of like special kind of secret gem. I mean, there might be, but I don't think anyone's found it yet. Okay, where's my mouse? Next. You don't get to choose your own name. You get to choose, well, you do, but you don't get to type it out. You get to type out a nickname, and you get to roll for a name so that you choose something appropriate and not stupid like I would usually pick. Everything's a little bit Turkic. Could be Rasta. Rust is sus. It's a bit memey. Anu, it's almost yes in Czech, so I can do that. It could be Rusty, yes. I won't do a nickname. Then you pick finish. The final choice is where you start. You're heading in the same place for each character, and it's not. I think actually one of the drops you like right close to where you should be, but you're going to be walking around so much that it's not really a benefit to like go closer to something. Like the experience of the game is mostly in like traveling, if you couldn't tell from the title. So if your kind of mindset is to just like cut all of the traveling out, then you're kind of missing the point of the game. Whatever kind of character you've picked, whatever makes the most sense to you, I'd pick that. And then it's a question of like what you do after that, which I don't know, if people fancy a video on that, I can do a quick introduction of like what you do when you start, or what you can do if you want to like get some equipment and like patch yourself up. I'm gonna say I was traveling on land and I came from the west. And I'm done. I hope that was useful. I hope this will help at least a few people like get into the game, because it's a really cool game. It's in a kind of a rocky place because it's early access and they just fired a load of their stuff. But I think even now it's like worth taking a look at if you can afford €20. It's not too much. Anyway, have a nice day.